It was a cold December evening, and the quiet hum of the city streets echoed against the backdrop of distant car horns and faint laughter. The soft glow of streetlights illuminated the snow-covered sidewalks, where Ella Green stood bundled in her worn-out coat, her breath visible in the frosty air. She was stranded. Her old sedan, which had seen better days, had given up just as she was returning from her late-night shift at the diner. With her phone battery drained and no way to call for help, Ella's options seemed as bleak as the winter night itself. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. She sighed, glancing up at the vast starlit sky. The occasional car zipped past, but none slowed. Her hand trembled as she waved at yet another passing vehicle, her hope dwindling with every second. Suddenly, the quiet roar of an engine broke her thoughts. A sleek black SUV approached, its polished exterior gleaming under the streetlights. To her surprise, the car slowed, and then came to a halt a few feet away. The window rolled down to reveal a man in a baseball cap and a plain black hoodie. His face was partially obscured by the shadow of the cap, but his voice carried a warmth that instantly put her at ease. "You look like you could use a ride," he said, his tone friendly but understated. Ella hesitated for a moment. Years of cautionary tales about strangers swirled in her mind, but something about him felt trustworthy. The biting cold left little room for indecision. "Thank you," she said, her voice tinged with relief and exhaustion. She climbed into the passenger seat, grateful for the burst of warmth from the car's heater. The man offered her a smile and handed her a bottle of water from the cup holder. "Where are you headed?" Ella explained her situation, mentioning her car trouble and how she lived about 15 miles away. He nodded, his demeanor calm and unassuming. The drive was quiet at first, punctuated only by the rhythmic sound of the tires against the road. But as they navigated the winding streets, they began to talk. The man asked about her job, and she spoke about her double shifts at the diner, her dreams of saving enough money to return to school, and her struggles as a single mother. He listened intently, his responses thoughtful and encouraging. When she asked about him, he was vague, brushing off her curiosity with a modest chuckle. "Just a guy passing through," he said, leaving it at that. When they reached her small apartment complex, Ella thanked him profusely. "I don't know how I can repay you," she said, her eyes reflecting genuine gratitude. "Just pay it forward someday," he replied with a gentle smile. And with that, he drove off, leaving her standing there, still processing the unexpected kindness she had just experienced. For the next 3 years, life moved on for Ella. She worked tirelessly, balancing her job and parenting her spirited 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Times were tough, but she never forgot the mysterious stranger who had stopped to help her that freezing night. She often wondered who he was and what had compelled him to stop for someone like her. One crisp autumn afternoon, while Ella was cleaning out her closet, she stumbled upon a crumpled napkin with faint writing on it. It was the phone number the man had scrawled for her that night, just in case she needed further assistance with her car. A wave of curiosity swept over her. On impulse, she decided to call the number, unsure if it would still be active or if he would even remember her. The phone rang twice before a deep, familiar voice answered. "Hello? Hi," Ella began nervously. "You might not remember me, but you helped me out a few years ago when my car broke down. I found your number and just wanted to say thank you again." There was a pause on the other end before he spoke. "I remember," he said, his tone warm. "I'm glad to hear you're doing well." They chatted briefly, and Ella's curiosity got the better of her. "I never got your name that night," she said, her voice tentative. "It's Michael," he replied simply. Ella thanked him once more, and they parted ways. It wasn't until months later, when she was watching a documentary with Lily, that the truth unraveled. The film was about Michael Jordan, the basketball legend. As Ella watched the screen, her heart began to race. The voice, the face, even the subtle gestures, all of it clicked. She froze as the realization hit her like a tidal wave. The man who had stopped to help her on that snowy night was Michael Jordan, one of the most famous athletes in the world. Her mind reeled as she replayed every moment of their encounter. He had been so humble, so ordinary in his demeanor, that she had never suspected his identity. The simplicity of his gesture now seemed monumental in light of who he was. He could have easily driven past, too preoccupied with his life as a global icon, but he hadn't. He had stopped for her, a struggling waitress with no one else to turn to. Ella couldn't keep this revelation to herself. She shared the story with a few close friends who were equally astonished. Word spread, and soon local media caught wind of her incredible tale. Reporters reached out, eager to verify the story and hear her account. Ella hesitated at first, unsure if she wanted the sudden attention. but she eventually agreed, hoping that sharing her experience might inspire others to show kindness, no matter their circumstances. When the story broke, it captured the hearts of people everywhere. It wasn't just about a chance encounter with a celebrity, it was about the power of compassion and the ripple effects of small acts of kindness. People marveled at how one of the most accomplished individuals in the world had taken the time to help someone in need without any expectation of recognition. Michael Jordan himself remained characteristically private about the incident. When approached for comment, he simply said, "I was just doing what anyone should do. Helping someone in need doesn't require a special reason." For Ella, the experience was life-changing in more ways than one. The renewed attention brought opportunities her way, from community support to unexpected job offers. She was able to enroll in online courses and work toward her dream of becoming a teacher. She also made a point to volunteer at local shelters, paying forward the kindness she had received. Years later, she would often tell Lily the story of the mysterious man who had helped her. It wasn't just what he did, she would say, but how he did it, with humility and no expectation of thanks. The lesson stuck with Lily, who grew up with a deep appreciation for the value of helping others. Ella's story became a testament to the fact that even the smallest actions can have profound impacts. And though she never met Michael Jordan again, his simple act of kindness remained a guiding light in her life, a reminder that in a world often filled with indifference, one person's generosity can make all the difference. As the days passed and the world marveled at Ella's story, she found herself reflecting more deeply on that winter night and the incredible person who had stepped into her life so unexpectedly. What lingered in her mind was not just the extraordinary revelation of Michael Jordan's identity, but the sheer humanity of his actions. She thought of how often the world viewed such icons as untouchable, removed from the ordinary struggles of people like her. Yet, in that singular moment, Michael had demonstrated that no amount of fame or fortune could eclipse the simple act of caring for another human being. Ella decided to channel the energy from this experience into something meaningful. She began to write, pouring her thoughts and feelings onto paper. It started as a private journal, a way to process her emotions, but over time it grew into something more. A collection of reflections, memories, and lessons learned. She titled it The Stranger Who Stopped, and while it wasn't explicitly about Michael Jordan, it was inspired by his act of kindness and what it had taught her about humanity. The writing process became a cathartic journey. Ella revisited moments in her life when strangers had offered small, unexpected acts of kindness, whether it was a customer at the diner leaving an extra-large tip when she was short on rent, or a neighbor helping her carry groceries up the stairs when her arms were full. She realized that these seemingly minor gestures had a cumulative effect, giving her the strength to keep going when the weight of the world felt too heavy. By the time she finished her manuscript, Ella wasn't sure what to do with it. She hesitated to share it widely, fearing that people might dismiss her story as an attempt to capitalize on her connection to someone famous. But her close friend Sarah convinced her otherwise. "This isn't just your story," Sarah said. "It's a story that belongs to anyone who's ever been touched by kindness or needed a reminder that good people exist in the world." Encouraged by Sarah, Ella sent her manuscript to a few small publishers. To her astonishment, one of them responded within weeks, expressing interest in publishing her work. They saw potential in her heartfelt narrative and believed it could resonate with a wide audience. Before long, The Stranger Who Stopped was in print, and Ella found herself thrust into a new chapter of her life. The book's release brought Ella a level of attention she had never anticipated. Readers connected deeply with her story, and letters began pouring in from across the country. People shared their own tales of kindness, of strangers paying for meals, offering rides, or lending a hand during hard times. Some even recounted moments when they had been inspired to help others because of Ella's story. It was humbling and overwhelming, but Ella embraced it, seeing it as an opportunity to amplify the message she had learned that night in the SUV. Meanwhile, the media attention surrounding Ella's connection to Michael Jordan reignited interest in his philanthropic efforts. Though famously private, he had quietly supported numerous charitable initiatives over the years, from funding scholarships to building clinics in underserved communities. Ella's story became a reminder of the many ways he had touched lives, often without seeking recognition. It also spurred renewed discussions about the responsibility of those with privilege and influence to give back. As her book gained traction, Ella was invited to speak at schools, community centers, and even corporate events. Public speaking was far outside her comfort zone, but she saw it as a chance to encourage others to embrace kindness and pay it forward. She would often begin her talks with a simple question. How many of you have ever been helped by a stranger? Almost every hand in the room would go up. Now, she would continue, how many of you have gone out of your way to help someone else in return? The responses varied, but her words always planted a seed of thought. Ella's journey took another unexpected turn when a national television network invited her to appear on a talk show. The producers hinted that they had a surprise in store, but she couldn't have guessed what it would be. As she sat on the stage, recounting her story to the host, the audience erupted into applause. She turned to see Michael Jordan himself walking onto the set, his signature smile lighting up the room. Ella's heart raced as he approached, and for a moment she felt like the shy diner waitress all over again. But Michael greeted her with the same warmth and humility he had shown that night, shaking her hand before taking a seat beside her. I couldn't pass up the chance to see how much you've accomplished, he said, his voice steady but sincere. The two shared a heartfelt conversation, reflecting on the night that had brought them together and the impact it had had on both their lives. Michael praised Ella's resilience and determination, while she thanked him for inspiring her to believe in the power of small gestures. The audience watched, captivated by the genuine connection between them. The appearance sparked another wave of interest in Ella's story, and soon she was receiving invitations from international organizations and humanitarian groups. She traveled to conferences and workshops, spreading her message far and wide. Along the way, she met people from all walks of life. Teachers, doctors, social workers, volunteers, each with their own stories of kindness to share. One particularly memorable encounter was with a young woman named Marisol, who approached Ella after a speaking event in Chicago. Marisol was visibly emotional as she explained how reading The Stranger Who Stopped had changed her perspective. I was so focused on my own struggles, she said, that I stopped noticing the struggles of others. Your story reminded me that we're all connected, and now I make it a point to help whenever I can. Ella was deeply moved by Marisol's words. She realized that the ripple effects of her story were far greater than she had ever imagined. It wasn't just about her or Michael Jordan. It was about the countless lives being touched and transformed by the simple idea of paying it forward. Back home, Ella's life began to stabilize in ways she had once only dreamed of. The financial success of her book allowed her to quit her job at the diner and focus on her education. She completed her degree and became a teacher, fulfilling a lifelong aspiration. Her daughter, Lily, grew up watching her mother's journey and internalized the values of empathy and generosity. Inspired by Ella's example, Lily started a kindness club at her school, organizing food drives and community cleanup projects. As the years went by, Ella never lost sight of the moment that had set everything in motion. She continued to reflect on that snowy night, not just as a pivotal point in her own life, but as a reminder of the unexpected ways in which our lives intersect. She often wondered how many other people Michael Jordan had helped quietly, without fanfare or recognition. It was a thought that filled her with gratitude and awe. Ella's story eventually became the subject of a documentary, exploring the broader themes of compassion and human connection. Filmmakers interviewed not only Ella and Michael, but also others who had been inspired by their story. The film painted a vivid picture of the enduring power of kindness, weaving together narratives from across the globe. For Ella, the journey was never about fame or accolades. It was about honoring the lesson she had learned, that even the smallest act of kindness can create ripples far beyond what we can see. And as she stood on the stage at the documentary's premiere, looking out at the faces of strangers who had come to hear her story, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Ella's story, rooted in a single act of compassion, continued to grow, branching into areas she never could have foreseen. As her life blossomed with opportunities, she remained deeply conscious of the responsibilities those opportunities carried. Her unexpected connection with Michael Jordan had opened doors, but what truly resonated with people was not his fame. It was the universal truth that even the smallest act of kindness could change a life. With this understanding, Ella decided to take her message to places where it was needed most. She began partnering with nonprofit organizations that worked in communities facing severe economic and social challenges. Her role wasn't just to inspire, it was to listen, learn, and help amplify the voices of those who were often unheard. During one of these visits to an inner-city youth center in Detroit, Ella met a young man named Jamal. He was only 16 but already burdened with responsibilities far beyond his years. Jamal had been taking care of his younger siblings after their mother's untimely death. Despite his hardships, he had a sharp intellect and a passion for learning. Yet his circumstances had made him cynical about the world and the people in it. When Ella spoke at the center, sharing her story and encouraging the young attendees to believe in the power of human connection, Jamal approached her afterward. "That's a nice story," he said, his tone cautious. "But it's hard to believe people really care when you've seen the worst of what they can do." Ella didn't dismiss his skepticism. Instead, she sat with him, asking about his life and the challenges he faced. She listened with genuine interest, letting him vent his frustrations. As they talked, Ella could see a glimmer of hope in Jamal's guarded demeanor. She encouraged him to think about the kind of impact he wanted to make despite the difficulties he faced. Their conversation sparked something in Jamal. Over the next few months, he started volunteering at the youth center, mentoring younger kids and organizing events to bring the community together. Ella kept in touch, providing encouragement and resources where she could. Jamal's transformation became a testament to the ripple effect of her message. Meanwhile, Ella's own life was evolving in unexpected ways. The connections she made through her outreach efforts led her to collaborate with educators, policymakers, and activists. Together, they developed workshops focused on fostering empathy and community engagement, targeting schools and workplaces alike. These programs encourage participants to step out of their comfort zones, confront their biases, and actively seek opportunities to help others. One particularly memorable workshop took place in a corporate setting, a major tech company known for its competitive environment. At first, Ella wondered if her message would resonate in such a high-pressure, results-driven atmosphere. But as the employees shared their stories and reflected on their interactions with others, a noticeable shift occurred. By the end of the session, even the most reserved participants were brainstorming ways to incorporate acts of kindness into their daily routines. The company later adopted a policy of encouraging employees to dedicate a portion of their time to volunteer work, citing Ella's workshop as the inspiration. Ella also began to notice how her message resonated across cultural boundaries. During a speaking tour in Europe, she visited a refugee camp in Greece. The camp was home to families who had fled war-torn regions, many of whom were struggling to rebuild their lives. Ella met a young girl named Amina, who had been separated from her extended family during their journey. Despite the hardships she had endured, Amina greeted Ella with a radiant smile and an eagerness to share her story. Through a translator, Amina explained how volunteers at the camp had helped her learn a new language and adjust to her new surroundings. Inspired by their kindness, she had started teaching other children in the camp to read and write. Ella was deeply moved by Amina's resilience and the way she had turned her pain into a source of strength for others. She returned home with a renewed commitment to advocating for marginalized communities, realizing that the need for compassion extended far beyond the borders of her own country. As Ella's outreach expanded, so did her influence. She was invited to participate in global summits, where she joined discussions about addressing systemic issues like poverty, inequality, and access to education. These events brought her into contact with world leaders, activists, and changemakers who shared her vision for a more compassionate world. While she often felt out of place among such prominent figures, Ella reminded herself that her role wasn't to solve every problem. It was to keep the focus on the human stories behind the statistics. One of the most impactful moments of her journey came during a summit in South Africa. Ella visited a rural village where a community organization had built a school for local children. The villagers welcomed her warmly, eager to share the success of their efforts. She was struck by the sense of solidarity and mutual support that permeated the community. Despite limited resources, the villagers had come together to create a brighter future for their children, demonstrating the power of collective action. Ella shared her own story with the children at the school, emphasizing the importance of kindness and perseverance. In turn, the children performed a traditional dance for her, their laughter and joy filling the air. The experience left Ella deeply humbled and inspired. She realized that while her story had touched many lives, she had also been profoundly shaped by the people she encountered along the way. Back home, Ella decided to take her efforts one step further. She established the Pay It Forward Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to fostering kindness and community-building initiatives. The foundation focused on three main areas: education, mentorship, and emergency assistance for individuals in crisis. With the support of donors and volunteers, the foundation quickly grew, launching programs across the country and even internationally. Through the foundation, Ella met countless individuals whose lives were transformed by small acts of kindness. There was Maria, a single mother who received financial aid to start her own business. Carlos, a teenager who found a mentor through the Foundation's programs and went on to pursue a college degree, and Ahmed, a refugee who received help securing housing and employment for his family. Each story reinforced Ella's belief in the power of compassion to change lives. As her work continued to gain momentum, Ella occasionally found herself reflecting on the extraordinary journey she had undertaken since that fateful night. She often thought about Michael Jordan, wondering if he knew just how far his simple act of kindness had reached. Though they hadn't spoken since their televised reunion, she remained deeply grateful for the role he had played in her life. One day, to her surprise, Ella received a letter in the mail. It was from Michael. The note was brief but heartfelt. He congratulated her on her accomplishments and expressed pride in the impact she had made. "I never imagined that night would lead to all this," he wrote, "but it's a reminder that we never know how much good a single moment of kindness can do." Ella kept the letter in a small wooden box on her desk, a cherished reminder of the connection that had sparked her journey. It served as a source of inspiration during challenging times, motivating her to continue her work even when the obstacles seemed insurmountable. As the years passed, Ella's foundation grew into a global movement, with chapters in dozens of countries and a network of volunteers numbering in the thousands. The impact of her message was evident in the countless lives that had been touched, the communities that had been strengthened, and the enduring legacy of kindness she had helped to build. In her later years, Ella often reflected on the serendipity of life, how a broken-down car on a snowy night had set her on a path she could never have imagined. She realized that the true power of kindness wasn't just in the immediate help it provided, but in its ability to inspire others to do the same. And in that realization, she found a profound sense of peace, knowing that her story would continue to ripple outward, touching lives in ways she might never see. Her daughter Lily, now an adult, carried on her mother's work, ensuring that the Pay It Forward Foundation remained a beacon of hope for future generations. Together, they proved that kindness was more than an abstract ideal. It was a force capable of changing the world one act at a time. Ella's journey, though deeply personal, had taken on a life of its own, evolving into a beacon of hope and a testament to the boundless potential of human compassion. As her story continued to inspire people worldwide, Ella found herself grappling with a question that had lingered in her mind since the beginning. What does it truly mean to leave a legacy? Legacy, she realized, was not about fame, recognition, or even the tangible impact of her work. It was about the unseen connections, the moments where her message sparked a decision, a change, or an act of kindness in someone she would never meet. It was about creating a culture of empathy that outlived her, one rooted in the simple belief that every person has the power to make a difference. As her foundation grew, Ella became increasingly focused on sustainability, ensuring that the work she had started would endure long after she was gone. She partnered with educators to integrate lessons on empathy and kindness into school curricula, emphasizing the importance of teaching these values at an early age. These programs were designed not as abstract discussions, but as practical, hands-on activities where children could experience the joy of helping others firsthand. In one school, a group of students inspired by Ella's teachings launched a kindness club dedicated to performing one act of service each week. The club began with small gestures, writing thank you notes to teachers, picking up litter in the playground, but soon grew into something larger. They organized food drives, visited nursing homes, and raised funds for local charities. One of their projects, building a community garden, became a centerpiece for the neighborhood, bringing people together and fostering a renewed sense of connection. The ripple effects of Ella's influence extended beyond her foundation and the programs it supported. People from all walks of life began sharing their stories of how her message had touched them, creating a tapestry of human experiences united by a common thread. A woman in Tokyo started a series of kindness pop-ups, where strangers could leave messages of encouragement for others to find. A retired firefighter in Texas began hosting workshops to teach young people life skills, inspired by Ella's commitment to mentorship. A group of nurses in Brazil launched an initiative to provide emotional support for patients' families, citing Ella's story as their motivation. Ella, though deeply moved by these accounts, remained grounded. She often reminded herself that her role was not to take credit, but to keep the momentum going. She continued traveling, speaking, and meeting people from all corners of the globe, her message evolving to address the unique challenges each community faced. While her schedule was demanding, Ella drew strength from the connections she made, finding renewed purpose in the stories of resilience, generosity, and hope she encountered. As she entered her later years, Ella began writing again. This time, she focused on a memoir, not just to recount her journey, but to capture the lessons she had learned along the way. She wrote about the power of vulnerability, the importance of listening, and the beauty of embracing the unknown. Her memoir, titled One Act at a Time, became a bestseller, further cementing her legacy and spreading her message to new audiences. Ella often reflected on how far she had come, not just geographically or professionally, but emotionally. The shy, struggling woman who once stood on the side of a snowy road had become a catalyst for global change. Yet she never lost sight of the simplicity at the heart of it all. One person helping another, one moment of kindness at a time. In her final years, Ella chose to step back from the public eye, focusing on spending time with her family and mentoring the next generation of leaders within her foundation. Watching her daughter Lily and the many young people she had inspired take the reins filled her with an immense sense of pride and peace. She knew the work she had started was in good hands, and she felt certain that the seeds of kindness she had sown would continue to grow long after she was gone. Ella's life, shaped by a chance encounter on a cold winter night, became a story for the ages. It was a reminder that even the smallest gesture, a ride offered, a hand extended, could ripple outward, touching lives in ways that no one could predict. It was a legacy not of fame or fortune, but of love, compassion, and the enduring belief that the world could be a better place if we all chose to see each other with kindness. In her final days, Ella often found herself reflecting on the quiet moments that had shaped her life. The conversations with strangers, the shared smiles, and the simple acts of kindness that had transformed her world. She no longer worried about leaving a legacy, because she realized that the true impact of her journey had been in the countless lives touched by those very small moments. Whether it was Jamal, the young man from Detroit, or Amina, the refugee girl in Greece, each person she met carried her message forward, passing it on to others who, in turn, passed it on again. Ella had learned that kindness wasn't a grand gesture. It was a collection of everyday actions that created a ripple effect, one that could span generations. As she sat with her family, surrounded by the people who had supported her from the start, she felt a deep sense of contentment. The world, she knew, was a better place because of the compassion she had shared, and it would continue to be, long after she was gone. Ella's story, born from a single act of kindness, would live on, carried forward by all those who believed in the power of giving. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Michael Jordan helping a stranded woman? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.